TJ Gamble, how we doing, sir?
Doing all right, man.
Not too bad, not too bad. Got you here in
Texas.
Austin, Texas, out here for George Strait.
I wish that's why I was out here.
Yeah. Is my car my car is a little on the small side,
this is Kalen's attempt at making his guests feel as uncomfortable as he possibly can, painting them in the worst possible lights. This is the first installment of Big Man in a Little Car.
Dude, you're so funny, man, because I'm like, should we do it here? Should we do it? You're like, I don't care.
I really don't
You're
care.
like, I really don't care. But you're gonna
see, the thing is
you're
like,
gonna talk smack about this to the end of time.
I'm in a tiny little car, and the camera's framed that way, so I'm leaning over here. This seat does not. No. We're going with it now. But the seat won't let up, so I'm like all laid back like this right here. Like, let's, get my belly even closer to the camera. It's kind of like how they make Gandalf look so big in Lord of the Rings. But I'm good with it. Like, these are your creative choices, and it's not me. It's not my job to come here and judge your creativity.
Judge my creativity. Yeah, you know what I should do though is I should move this up.
No.
I make some interesting. Well, I'm realizing that we want to. I make some interesting creative choices from time to time. I've been known to make an unusual choice or two.
But that's part of the creative process. Most creatives are weird people.
That's true. Yeah. You got to be a little weird.
Yes.
Do you consider yourself a creative? Would you use that?
I don't know. I've always been kind of a weird mix of creative and technical.
Yeah.
And so in flashes on days, I'm very creative.
Dude,
but then most days I'm going to be much more technical and analytical, and I can't be both of those in the same day. So I have to wake up knowing which one I'm going to try to be that day.
Which hat you're going to put on.
Yeah, which probably limits me from being really good at either one of them.
I mean, your words, your words, not mine. No, that's funny because, there's definitely a creative aspect to all this stuff, to the video, to the, everything that you do.
Were you afraid you're backing up or something? Like, what are you,
I gotta
look at yourself in the mirror.
Well, actually, I was seeing you in there, and I was like, this is weird. Like, I'm looking at you from different. You got to get everything set up. You got to get everything set up properly in here because it's a small space.
Probably before you start rolling the camera, usually.
Probably beforehand. We're making this up as we go. There are no rules here. We're two tech bros in a
hotel parking lot in a very small. Was it a Honda Accord?
It's a Honda Accord.
Yeah, coupe.
A coupe. Yeah, this is possibly the smallest car that I could have picked.
Yeah, well, I own a Volkswagen Corrado. We could have done that one. That would have been a little more.
Do you have it here?
No. Okay. I'm in the truck. We'd had plenty of space to set up in the truck.
That's the other thing I was going to say is that we could have done it in your car too. But as long as you have one of these little plugs.
But what would we have talked about? This is much more fun. We've blown half of this interview just bitching about the car, and that's content. That's good stuff.
That's content. Yeah, it's all content.
It's all content.
It's all content at the end of the day.
Very much so.
Now you're working on a big project, but we're not going to talk about it because it's
not too much. Not unless you want to hold this until January.
No, I can't hold that. I'm going to publish this in about 17 minutes.
Yeah, we can't.
We can't get into it, but it's going to be exciting. So everybody should keep an eye out. Is my understanding.
I was hoping it would roll out in Q4, but we're a little behind. It's the first time we've done something like this, but I've pretty much put all other content on pause, at least as much as I can, to focus all of my energy and effort onto this initiative. Right. And it's looking really good so far. I'll show it to you in a little while, but then, if you tell anybody, I'm going to have to kill you.
And it would be, if you wanted to kill me, I'd be in trouble.
Well, I know where you live.
Because you know where I live.
Even though you're trying to hide it by meeting people in parking lots and filming in cars and not having them over to your house anymore.
Yeah.
But,
I mean.
I can find you.
Yeah, you could probably find me. Yeah. You look like you could pack a punch,
Oh.
Have you ever gotten into a fight? Have you ever gotten into a really bad fight?
When I was younger, a couple of times.
Have you killed, killed somebody?
Here's the thing.
That's a long pause, TJ.
I never initiated the fight. And I haven't lost one since I was like 5 years old.
You don't start them, but you finish them.
Well, I was always, growing up, I was always afraid I would get in trouble. Growing up a poor kid in Alabama, education, good grades, like that's how you got out of there.
Right.
And so I was always afraid that I would get in trouble if I did something like that. So I was always very cautious.
Okay.
I didn't usually just try to destroy someone.
Yeah.
Even though the few fights I've been in, I had the opportunity to do so.
You won them. You won them
but-
handily.
Well,
is what you're trying to say.
I made the other person very quickly aware that this was not a situation they wanted to be in. And then I let them leave, right? I gave them an out. This is not somewhere you want to be.
Right.
This is not going to go in your favor.
Right.
Here's your out. And they
you
took
let them
it.
out.
Luckily, they took it.
That was very diplomatic.
Yeah,
of you.
it was. It
Yeah,
was.
I appreciate
Now,
that.
when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I was on the playground in Columbus, Georgia, or Fort Benning, Georgia, at the barracks. You know, my dad was in the military, and there was this little kid getting picked on, and I was a little bigger than him, so I stepped over there to try to help the guy. And this other kid just lit me up, like out of nowhere. I was just like, "Hey man, leave him alone." And that dude just turned around and just popped me 3 times in the face and bloodied my nose. And of course, I found out later he was like 5 years older than me. He was just about my same size.
So he was twice your age. You were 5.
Yeah, he was like 9 or so, something like that. And, and I might have been a little older than 5, I guess. It might have been 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And he might have been 11 or 12. But he was 4 or 5 years older than me, and that's the only one I've lost. Like, I didn't even throw a punch. Like, I didn't even know what happened. I'm just like, hey, man, whoop, and it was over.
It was over.
Like, whoa, well, everything's blurry. My eyes are watering.
I was talking to a buddy recently who we were talking about fighting for some reason and getting knocked. I go, have you ever been knocked out? And he goes, yeah. He was in a bar and he just bumped into some guy by accident and he turned around and he got knocked out.
Wow.
And then the next thing he remembered was just waking up. And I've never been knocked. I did get punched pretty good once in junior high.
You deserve
there was
you know you deserve it. Go ahead. You did it. You deserved it, didn't you?
No, I did. Here's what happened. There was this dude and he thought I was hitting on his girlfriend, but I wasn't. We were friends, whatever. So he was talking crap about me. So I walked up to him and I was like, hey man, you want to fight? And then, what did he say? I don't remember what he said, but I pushed him and he came back and punched me. And I was not able to block. So he hit me pretty solid. And then it kind of got broke up, but
I think you deserved it.
You think,
I think,
well,
you probably were trying to hit on his girlfriend. You were. There's no shame. Are y'all still friends today? You go ahead and admit it, man.
I really wasn't. Okay. I really wasn't. I was a good dude.
She was ugly. That's what he said. She was not attractive.
She was cool, man. She was a cool person. But these things happen.
They do happen in our youth.
In our youth.
Yes.
Situations get out of control, from time to time. And so anyway, what's going on with work? What are you excited about? Literally the only thing you're working on right now you can't talk about. I mean, you're not doing anything else.
This project I'm working on is like 4 years in the making. And so, it took 4 years to get to a point to where I had the equipment. Like, I haven't been just collecting equipment for fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, even though it seems like it.
It does seem like
people like, hey, look, he's got all this studios. Well,
Yeah.
no, I've been collecting.
You've been building towards
I've been building to have
something.
the equipment that I need to do this type of content.
Yeah.
It took, 4 years from the idea to we had to, get the equipment. I had to hire the right people on my team to offload, the marketing stuff that's going to go behind it.
You had to mortgage your home to afford all this.
No, but we did take out some loans and things that have helped. But it is a big project that requires a lot of travel, a lot of moving pieces. I had to, hire Alex for our director of sales to kind of take over some of the things I was doing on the sales side.
Yeah.
So I've had to, take a lot of the things I do on a daily basis and make sure we had the infrastructure at Jamersan to handle those without me being there, because this is my full-time energy and focus for, probably at least 4 or 5 months now, and probably 2 or 3 months more.
That's cool, man. Let me ask you this, man. The Magento open source fork stuff.
Sure.
You probably, because you've been getting into other platforms, you probably don't care about it at all at this point. You're like, listen, do you have any thoughts?
It's not that I don't care, and we're actually having a live stream this upcoming Friday with Willem and Vinay, I haven't started promoting it. They just kind of agreed. We just set a time yesterday. So tomorrow I'll start promoting that.
Nice.
I've got other things to worry about, and I've quit worrying about things that are out of my control. Two, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. Like there's one thing to say we're going to fork or to say there's a problem and point it out. Like I'm all for pointing out the problems as you see them in a community like this. Like that's the only way we get movement to fixing those problems. And there's been a long history of Magento or Adobe making decisions that the community doesn't agree with, the community, bringing that to their attention, voicing their concerns, and actually getting some movement, whether fast or slow, actually, getting some of those things improved. And so this is an opportunity to do that. I don't know how successful it will be.
Yeah.
A fork like that takes a lot of resources and a lot of focus. And I'm assuming my life is not too uncommon from others. And so my energy and focus comes and goes depending on what's going on in life. And so if it's a small group of people that are dedicated to pushing an initiative like that forward, how much longevity can we get on that, right?
Yeah.
When it's not a business that, and I know they're looking to maybe try to build a business model around it, and the Magento Association being involved, and there's a lot of different avenues that could move that forward. But you've got Adobe on the other side saying, we're not stopping support for Magento open source. Like Magento open source, we got no plans to shut it down.
Right.
Well, okay, but nothing lasts forever. Like you are going to shut Magento open source down. Magento open source will come to an end. It could be next year. It could be 375 years from now, right?
Yeah.
But there is a timeline
It's going to happen
on something like that. So what is that timeline? Just because you don't have plans doesn't mean that at some point in the future, if all the circumstances are right, because that decision is going to be like that, right? It's going to be, we have no plans, we have no plans, we have no plans. Here's the announcement, it's done. Like they're never going to say, we're thinking about shutting this down. Or
Yeah,
we're thinking
it'll
about
just
doing
be
away.
like
It'll just be instant. And so,
and it'll be framed as an announcement about something new and exciting, and then, oh, by the way, we're
just buried in the
just
lead
be
there.
buried, yeah.
So as a community, we know that's business. As a publicly traded company, they have to hold decisions like that very close to the chest, and then they make the announcement. And so a lot of the people on Twitter that are defending Adobe, or maybe they work at Adobe, that are saying we have no plans, would they actually be privy to that information in at least any extreme advancement of that decision actually being made? I don't know, maybe not. It's a big company. Those decisions usually are not necessarily made by the people in the trenches.
Yeah.
So I understand the concern.
That's
I understand the pushback. I just don't know what the successful path forward from here is.
That's what I'm like. What I want to know is who's the guy or gal that at Adobe who could give the thumbs up, for example, to give the association ownership of the code base. Like who is that person, and can I get them in this car to talk about it?
Yeah, not with me. Maybe they can sit in the back. We can do it together. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Anyways, yeah, no, I know we're, everybody everybody's talking about this to some extent. It's kind of,
it's just, why would they? Right? Like, why would they at this point? If you're Adobe, where are your loyalties? Right? What is your agenda? And so
shareholders
exactly, for the most part, it is making revenue, generating revenue. And anything outside of that has to at least be run through that filter, through that lens.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're nefarious or they're going to do anything that's counter to the community, but ultimately the decisions come down to what's best for Adobe and their shareholders. And so, why would you give what is probably still one of the biggest pipelines from, funneling merchants through to Adobe Commerce? They go on open source, and then, you get their information and you have a chance to market to them, and you sell them on the additional functionality, and people still are making that trek up to Adobe Commerce. So why do something that might be counter to that while that's still a very viable path.
Yeah.
Once you go full microservices, well, then, maybe there's no need for that then, because it's not a viable upgrade path. It's a very different platform at that point.
Yeah.
And then maybe you hand that off, and maybe this is the first step toward making that a smooth transition rather than, oh my God, they just announced the end of it, let's scramble and figure something out.
Yeah. Are you you're working with different e-commerce platforms and stuff like that. Like what would be kind of the percentage of like your if you could say like this much of my business is on this platform, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, the great thing is I don't have anybody that can tell me what I can and can't say. So I can say whatever.
That's what I like. That's what I'm talking about.
Right now, the number of new builds, and we only support BigCommerce and Adobe Commerce. We don't really do a lot of open source stuff anymore. Well, we may have a few legacy customers on it, but none of our new builds are Magento open source. And it's not necessarily that we wouldn't. It's just those are not the leads
I'm going to end the interview right now.
Yeah.
I'm shutting it down.
Shut it down. But I would say probably, if I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, I would probably say 2/3 to 3/4 of the new builds, if you're just talking about number of projects that we're doing, is BigCommerce versus Adobe Commerce. So the vast majority are BigCommerce.
You're a BigCommerce guy.
But the vast majority of our revenue is Adobe Commerce.
By far. Okay.
Like almost flipped, because one Adobe Commerce project can be,
Mucho
3
dinero.
or 4 to 10 BigCommerce projects. And we're seeing that shift a little bit. We are seeing BigCommerce projects, at least the ones we're quoting, maybe not ones we've landed thus far, but over the last few months, the ones we're working are getting bigger and bigger. And we've got to offer additional services, because we can sell an Adobe Commerce project, and because we're mostly technical, we can sell a nice retainer to support it, continuously develop it. But on a SaaS platform, that's not what they're looking for. It's not what they need.
Yeah.
And so we build the project, and then our revenue stream from that merchant is virtually over. So we've got to...
They need some SEO. They need some
marketing, some email marketing, that kind of thing. And so we're building out those services now. Like, we've just made some hires in the last couple of weeks to help jumpstart us building out those services so that we can increase the value of those merchants.
Yeah, that's right. I remember us talking about that, building out kind of the marketing side of things. And then I keep hearing that like the BigCommerce, that sort of the developer community or ecosystem it's like people have a hard time finding developers that specialize in. Of course, you don't have as much of a need for somebody that can specialize in the same way that you did with Magento, because it's simpler, right? You're mostly doing front end stuff. But over time, the back-end integrations get more complicated. You got to know the APIs better. So do you see that? Do you need to find developers that know BigCommerce well? Is that a challenge, or?
It's not as scary as going into an Adobe Commerce project with an inexperienced developer.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you've got some leadership that understands it, you can make it work. And again, we've made hires in that regard to increase our technical leadership, especially around BigCommerce. But yeah, there's not a BigCommerce hero where I could go find talent when I need it. Right?
Could be a
thing.
There's not.
Most developers who are out there just learning SaaS platforms and hacking and doing work, they're on Shopify. Like, it's just where they're at. That's where the money is. That's where the majority of merchants are. BigCommerce, I really like their angle with the open SaaS and being more flexible. And so I like where BigCommerce is going, but they just don't have that, what I would call that low-end hype, right? Those really small merchants or those self-starters or people that are just tinkering and playing around, right, like that end up growing into valuable contributors to the ecosystem. They just don't have that.
Right. Because I hear this a lot, that BigCommerce is more customizable for maybe that mid-market. Shopify is better for the people that are starting out. What are some of the specifics on that? Because I still haven't quite wrapped my head around it. I believe payments are one of the things. Like they support different payment methods. Shopify basically wants to push people to their payment method. But it's one of the things I'm trying to better understand.
Yeah, obviously BigCommerce has the B2B edition they're doing now with some B2B stuff. Usually if BigCommerce is going to do a piece of functionality, it's going to be a little more robust.
Okay.
One of the big areas you're going to see is just in API rate limits. Like Shopify has very restrictive API rate limits, and if you want them higher, you got to negotiate. Yeah, you got to really negotiate with them and get more API calls. And so with BigCommerce, like they're much less restrictive in that regard. So if you're doing something like we do a lot of automotive and you're needing to move over tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of parts, you need to sync those nightly. You've got a lot of orders flowing back and forth. You can do that a lot faster on BigCommerce than you can do on Shopify.
And you're doing your big automotive sites and stuff on BigCommerce now?
Some.
Okay.
Some. Not all of them, but you're starting to see a lot more that are not necessarily as complicated as they were, 5 or 10 years ago. So they're starting to simplify a little bit. They're starting to be a little more specialized or, kind of narrowing their functionality set to fit a SaaS model. So that it's one of those where back 10 years ago, people just wanted what they wanted. They hadn't really figured out their business model. Right. Everything was custom, and that's why Magento was such a great fit. And we're starting to see people really, first of all, the functionality and capabilities of the third parties that surround SaaS platforms, so your search providers and things like that, are starting to fill in the gaps of some of the functionality that's missing from those SaaS platforms. But also, really, businesses are getting more into this D2C streamlined model where everything is much simpler. The user experience is much simpler. And so we've seen the platforms move more toward complicated things like automotive, but we've also seen automotive businesses move toward being a little simpler.
Right, everybody's kind of moving towards.
So everybody's kind of moving to the same point. So we've been able to do some fairly complicated automotive sites on BigCommerce.
Nice. What are some of the things, for example, automotive? Oh, well, you mentioned the API limits, and so
Fitment
that makes
is
sense.
the big one on automotive.
Okay.
Because you've got basically with automotive, they're going to have data is always a problem in automotive. You're getting auto parts and you're getting them from a bunch of different suppliers. You may be getting them from manufacturers. You may be getting them from distributors, and each one of them, they're going to give you data. And the auto care industry decided, 15 years ago or so, 10 years ago, that data was their biggest problem. So they came up with the ACEs and PIEs data standard. Right. ACEs being fitment information, like it will fit a very small Honda Accord. And the PIEs being the product information. That's the least standard data standardization known to man.
Okay.
They put in some loopholes for fringe cases, but then everybody just flocked to the fringe case stuff because their ERP won't handle the data properly. So it's all still really rough. It's still the wild, wild west. But being able to take that data, sync it into the site, but also this Honda has this gear shift right here or the door handle. Right. They may have used that door handle on this model all the way through 10 years, but it also may be the same door handle on every Honda that came out during that 10-year span. So that handle right there itself may fit 135 different year, make, model combinations.
Right.
And so when you have that on your site, you have to be able to tell the user that this will fit your application. What is your application? Okay. Yes, this part will fit.
Right.
Now with Magento, fairly easy to do. You could set up your own custom database tables. You could throw all that data in there. You can write your own fitment modules and check that data. That doesn't scale. If you end up with like 1 million products, you're going to have problems there. But what you do now typically is we run that through a search provider. So you find a search provider that focuses on automotive. They can index all of that data, set it up, and then you just got to do the user experience.
So it's all in a SaaS. It's all in a SaaS model, right? So
all that data. We've got partners that'll take that data and sync it into BigCommerce, sync it into the different search providers. They index all of it, and then we've just got to build out the user experience.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's interesting. I mean, it's kind of like search itself, like Algolia. I mean, it sounds like a similar thing where before you were building all that stuff out yourself,
Yep.
and now you got your Algolia SaaS, you plug it in, you create a UI on top of it, you're pretty much off.
Pretty much done.
So
and,
similar.
and then they're even, every time we do one of these, the UI gets a little easier to do.
Yeah.
You've got the My Garage functionality because, only psychopaths have one car, right? So,
yeah.
you have 2 or 3, so you can store which one you're working on. And
why do only psychopaths have one car?
It's a little bit of an inside joke. If you're a car guy, you get it.
Okay.
Right? If you are a car guy, you get it. If you have one car and you think I just called you a psychopath, then you react like Kaylin does, and you're like, "What do you mean, psychopaths?"
I don't get it. Why would you say that to me?
People who are into cars usually have more. It's a sickness.
I get it now.
Right?
I get
people who are into cars usually have more than one.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. That makes sense.
So that I've got my daily drivers. I've got.
I just
think
remember,
I've got like 4 or 5 more other than that right now.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I just remember what I actually wanted to talk to you about this whole time.
Oh, well, I've got all day, so let's go.
Me this long, which is the TikTok stuff, the whiskey TikTok.
Yes.
That stuff is amazing.
Well, that's,
you're getting like 5 million views on a video.
Well, we haven't done 1 million yet, but I think 300,000 or 400,000 on some videos. We were doing really well with that. And that's, obviously I'm a whiskey guy. I like whiskey, and we've started Bruzel, which is a website to sell whiskey-themed merchandise, basically, or alcohol-themed merchandise.
Oh, you started that site?
Yeah, we started that site, and we were doing it as a drop ship. It's all print on demand, and we were doing that as a content series, and then I've just had to pause that just because of lots of life situations. I had people pinging me this weekend wanting an update, so I got to do an update video on that. But we really, in about a month and a half, we gained about 15,000 followers on TikTok, posting
cool,
that
man.
content. And then I've just not really been able to post the last month or so. I've got to get back to that. But yeah, apparently I'm much better at whiskey content than I am at e-commerce content.
I think so. Yeah, it's a bigger market, right? So did you just put something out there and then it just got picked up by the algorithm? And
well, you could get lucky like that, but everything's strategic, right? So we're learning, we're trying different things. TikTok is all about those first couple of seconds and then trying to get people to watch it more than once, right?
Okay.
So it's average view duration and those first couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Engaging with it helps, but not as much as, say, YouTube. Like YouTube engagement really, really matters. On TikTok, it really is just about how many people are staying to watch it after that first 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. And so the videos that have done well have a really good first 2 seconds.
Okay.
So I think I had one that was like, 300,000 views, but to start, I just tossed a bottle up in the air and I'm looking directly at the camera and it comes down and I catch it.
Okay.
Right. And then I just start talking about it. So you really just see it fall and I catch. And then I talk about the bottle. So that first 2 seconds, I'm like, why in the world did he just catch? Where did it just fell from the heavens?
You got that like hook.
Right.
Yeah,
and then I'm just, talking about a bottle that, I guess another thing that kind of helped me is I talk about whiskey kind of like I talk about e-commerce. Like I'm a little bit too technical about it. So a lot of people that are kind of noobs don't necessarily understand.
Okay.
So I'm talking about a single barrel strength that I bought for $60. And it's a really, really good bottle of whiskey. But apparently half the people that watched that video didn't realize I was talking about barrel strength, even though it was a very specific part of the video where I said it was barrel strength. So everybody's just like commenting, dude, you got ripped off. This is a $30 bottle where I'm at. Like, not for the barrel strength, man. Like, pay attention. But that actually helped the video go crazy because everybody's just giving me shit about it, because they think I paid way too much for whiskey. So I guess that's good too. If you don't mind looking silly.
Yeah.
If you can just anger everybody, that works too. Yeah.
Dude, if you could just make TikTok videos about whiskey all day long, would that be the dream? Would that be the dream job?
I'd probably get bored, but yeah, I would like to be able to regularly create whiskey TikToks. Now I don't want to create like 7 a day, but I could thing is I could probably do 2 a day. And I could film all of that in like 2 hours in one afternoon.
Yeah.
So as long as you have the ideas, so spend all week thinking of ideas, and then they're only like less than a minute.
Yeah.
They require almost no editing. And so, like, we can just roll through some whiskey
Just
TikToks,
go through them.
but it's just coming up with the ideas that are, because I don't want to just post junk. Like, most people who are posting are just, they're just there to have a good time.
Yeah.
And I ruin it. Like, I can't be anywhere to have a good time. I got to work the system. It's a problem, but I'm not there to have a good time. I'm there to get some views.
It's a sickness.
It is a sickness.
Yeah. Cars and views.
Yes.
Just hacking away. That's funny, man. Yeah, I sometimes think I should mess around with TikTok, but I haven't.
I think you would be good at TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you would like it.
Yeah.
I think it fits your kind of, laid back, doing crazy stuff kind of vibe,
Type of
right?
vibe.
Like you should do, stupid little interviews in your car or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not calling your content stupid, but I mean, do something silly is what I'm trying to say, right? Like, just find something that's like a minute or less in your car, this setup, silly, and go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should mess around with that. What else, man? What else is going on, dude?
Just trying to get moved, working on the new studio.
So you got a new studio in addition to the secret project we're not talking about.
Yeah.
There's also another. Is this like your sixth time doing a new studio?
Well, I'll try to explain the situation.
Dude, you got moving cameras. You got what else could you possibly?
I'll explain it here in a second.
Okay.
Let me kind of give the backdrop or the background on the studio. When I started filming content, we were in an office, but most of our people are remote. So I'm paying for this office for no reason. And I'm starting to think of this big project I'm about to do. And this was like 3-4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I need revenue to fund this project. And I really want to go all in on this thing. So I need money to fund it. I need money to fund the people I need to add to the team so that I can, have the time to do it. And so I said, we're going to shut this studio down. This was 2019. We're going to shut this office down. We're going to shut the office down. So we had sold our house. I didn't have room in that house for a studio, so we had sold it, and we had moved out into the country. I had some land out in the country. My wife absolutely hated it. She hated it out there, and understandably so.
Too many bugs?
Well, it's just that wasn't real good infrastructure. And when we moved out there, it rained for like 4 months straight, it seems like. It was like the wettest winter ever. And so the whole place was just a mud pile. It was miserable.
Yeah.
I get it. And we hadn't built, I just put a mobile home out there. Like, we were just testing to see if we liked it before we built the big house and all this stuff. So I was going to build a house with a studio, and she hated it. So we decided to just move back into town. So I had to wait another year. It took me, till late 2019 to find a house that had a converted garage. So this thing had a converted garage. All I had to do was replace the air conditioner. They had a really loud portable AC, so I put in a mini split, and I've got a 20 by 20 room. And that's where I built the studio that I have now. And so that allowed me to shut down the office in early 2020 when my lease was up. Completely unrelated to COVID, which just turned out to be the greatest decision ever as far as shutting down an office in February.
Yeah.
So we shut that down, and I started filming at the house and collecting the equipment that I need for this big project we're doing, and experimenting with different techniques and things. And we've had a lot of success with the content. I need to be much more regular with it, but there's some other types of content I want to be able to create. There's some things that my team feels like we need to be able to do to make the content a little more engaging, and I can't do it in the studio I'm in now. Like, it's just packed to the brim with stuff. And so I started looking for, and this house we bought was always temporary. Like, it's just was always a temporary house to get us through. So we started looking, and I found another really large house built in the 70s that has like an entire downstairs I could use for content. So it's a huge house, but we just live upstairs, and downstairs is just content space.
Gotcha.
So I've been able to, it's not like one big open room, but I've got, a 20 by 14 room that'll just be for live streams.
Okay.
And podcast style content. So we're building that out with one wall will be a backdrop very similar to what I have, but the other wall we're going to make like a, type of distillery type scene. And basically from one desk, it'll be a 3-sided desk. So from one desk, I could get 3 different backdrop views.
Okay.
Which is one of the things we need to do, like sitting here with the same backdrop through a whole video. Not really engaging, right? We got to be able to mix it up a little bit. And then I've got another little game room where I can, set up some different views. It's got a fireplace, so we can do some fireside chat stuff. I'm building a full bar in there so we can do some bar scenes. And then I have an office where I can go in there and edit and do different stuff. And of course, with the bar, we can do more bourbon content and things like that.
You're a madman.
Yeah, well,
an absolute savage.
Here's what I want to leave people with this message. Having better equipment does not necessarily make better content. Just realize that. Remember that. You can do incredible content with a decent microphone and a cell phone.
Yeah.
So it's, I understand it's not all about the equipment, but at the same time, I want everything set up. My time comes and goes, and what I'm really chasing for 2022 is consistency. And so I'm trying to set everything up for me to where it's extremely easy, so that when I have limited time, the content doesn't suffer. I can just walk in. Like right now, I walk into my studio, I say, Alexa, let's go live. All the lights come on, everything's good to go.
Oh, really?
I press record, and I'm going.
Oh, that's cool.
And so with the new studio, we're going to do that, but trying to make it a little more dynamic, and then we're going to really go hard after consistency.
Okay. That sounds fun, dude. Meanwhile, I'll just be in my car.
Hey, as long as you're consistently in your car.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't explore doing it in a car like this, but I had thought about
a van. We talked about this
with a van and just
that's what I was thinking about, and we were talking about it, and I was like, well, and then the problem is it wouldn't fit in my dang garage. So, but then I was like, you know what? Why don't I just try it in here? And I tried it, and I was like, well,
it works.
Mostly, mostly works.
This is quirky enough to where it actually could add to the content, right?
Yeah.
Like you're really just sitting here in a car. It's better than the people you were trying to imitate before, where they're just walking and talking.
Yeah, that's tough.
With all the background noise and the wind and everything. Every time I run into one of those podcasts someone does where they're just like, "Hey, I'm on my morning jog and I'm just wanting to talk to you," I'm like, "Nah. Next episode." Yeah. So this is, it's interesting. Just make it a character in the show somehow, right? So
it kind of becomes a character all on its own. It's hard to avoid it,
Absolutely.
But it's just, I don't know. The cool thing is that it's soundproofed, more or less, and then I can just kind of
be anywhere. Yeah.
Be anywhere.
Be anywhere. So what have you been up to? Let's flip this interview.
Flip it around, man. Not too much, man. Just been doing these. Been trying to eat better,
Yeah, you're looking good,
Thanks,
man. Getting all ripped.
Trying to, man. That's that's been a couple year thing now, and just trying to keep that dialed in, do the whole gym thing. And what else, man? That's
just living the dream.
Living it up, man. Living it up.
I want to be Kalen when I grow up.
I don't know
just
about that, man.
Bouncing around doing podcasts, not really worrying about anything.
I'm not going to have, you wouldn't have anywhere near as big of a studio is the problem.
It might be better though. It might be better.
Possibly.
Yeah, it'd be cheaper for sure. I might have that money in an investment.
Yeah.
Like all the rental houses you're about to buy.
Get yourself some Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, I need some. Dude.
Are you into Bitcoin yet?
I'm not.
Dude, I got into Bitcoin a month or two ago.
There's actually an episode on HBO did this show about scammers.
Why you got to talk about scammers?
Well, there was this guy in Opelika that came in and he started the Roundhouse. So he started it was basically investors. He got a bunch of investors locally, and he was getting, young people in the area, kids from Auburn University, and taking their ideas and trying to help them promote it, right? Investing in them, trying to help them promote it. That's a whole different story than what I was going for, but he was real big in Bitcoin.
Okay.
Like he was all about Bitcoin. And I came this close to buying some Bitcoin, but I didn't buy it just because he was obviously a scammer and he was really into Bitcoin. Like him trying to talk me into Bitcoin, literally talked me out of Bitcoin. And I want to say it was less than $1,000 at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy it because I was like, well, this guy's all about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to deal with it.
It's funny. Like I got real excited about it when it was $2,000, bought nothing, but I was real excited about it. I was, I think I saw a documentary or something like that. And so anyway, I feel dumb about that, but I went to this Bitcoin conference actually, and I met a bunch of these Bitcoiners. And the funny thing is, even the people that did buy it back in the day, everybody has some story about something they regret, right? Because they bought it and then it 2x'd and then they sold it or it 4x'd. So because it's gone up so ridiculously fast, everybody, no matter when they bought it, has some, something they feel dumb about.
Well, I would have never held it.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I'd have never held
That's
it.
the thing.
No.
Like,
they're like, oh, if you'd have bought Bitcoin at $1, yeah, but at $3, I would have
sold it at $3.
It'd have been all gone.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I know there was a guy. I need to check on him and see how he's doing. There was in my little car group, my little car club, 3 or 4 years ago. There was a guy said he had 21 Bitcoin. That somebody, I think he had been given to him or he'd taken like his graduation from high school and taken all of his money and bought Bitcoin, and he'd been holding it for several years.
Yeah,
and he had like 20 or 21 Bitcoin. So
yeah,
I was like, I told him to hold it. Once he was my age, he was either going to be a billionaire or worth nothing.
Yeah.
Either way. Like that's
one or the other.
Those are the only, there's no in between. If you've got 20 Bitcoin, you're going to be a billionaire or at least a multi-millionaire, or it's going to be worth absolutely zero.
Yeah. It's weird, man. The whole crypto world is strange, man. And Bitcoin's weird. And then there's a billion other ones. It's confusing.
Well, there's just too many people being taken advantage of that don't understand it.
Yeah.
And so it has this whole scammy vibe because a lot of scammy people are leveraging it. Doesn't make it not legitimate, but there are a lot of scammy people out there taking advantage of folks that don't understand through NFTs or, all of these little, meme coins that they're just pumping and dumping on people.
Do you, this is a separate thing. Do you, when you're having a regular conversation with somebody, do you think about it? Do you go, hey, this would be a good YouTube video? Or like, do you go, this would be a good, like, as we're talking, I'm imagining the thumbnail for the clip and stuff like, do you do that in regular life where you're just talking to somebody and you go, oh man, this would be a good podcast?
If you're always,
I feel like it's a sickness that I have. I feel like it's a...
Yeah, you're not engaged in the conversation because you're like, okay, what should the thumbnail be? What should the title be? How could I, how could I frame this?
What color is this thing going to be?
That is, that can be a problem.
Weird,
it
right?
happens a little bit for me. I try not to go all in on, what's the thumbnail and everything during the conversation. But I will say, okay, that's a topic we probably should talk about because especially as I'm talking to merchants who are going through the sales process, I'm like, okay, I've heard this 3 times this week. Let's make sure we're creating some content around that.
Yeah.
But it's funny. That shows you've been in the YouTube game for a little while. You don't even worry about the topic. It's just like, okay, here's the thumbnail. Like that's the first thing. That's most important. Topic doesn't matter if I can't come up with a good thumbnail.
Like it's me and you with the Bitcoin logo in the middle.
Yeah.
That's the thumbnail.
That's what you got. Okay.
That's, and I'm going, that's going to be a good like it's going to look good. The Bitcoin logo is going to pop, be a nice gold Bitcoin logo.
It could. I don't why would they click though?
Doesn't even matter.
It does matter. They have to have
they do have to click. They do have to click. They do have to click, but but I think they'd click because, people want to click on Bitcoin stuff.
Okay. I don't know.
Not you?
I don't. Yeah, I don't
not
watch
into
a lot
it.
of Bitcoin content. I don't care.
I got for about a month or two, I was listening to 4 or 5 hours a day of podcasts.
Shows you have a lot more free time than I do. Thanks for rubbing it in, Kaylin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you could probably spend 4 hours a day on something if you wanted to.
Not right now.
Not right now.
Maybe long term, but not right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts anymore. Only I listen to podcasts when I travel. So 2018, 2019, I did a lot of work travel during those years.
You listen to a lot of NPR Fresh Air?
Really, if I'm as far as podcasts go, I'm usually listening like How I Built This with Guy Raz.
Yeah, that's
I love
a good
that
one.
one.
Yeah.
I love that one. So it's mostly business stuff, some e-commerce stuff. But like last 2 years, I haven't listened to hardly any podcasts because I haven't been traveling at all.
Yeah. I go in and out. I go in and out of phases. I'm coming out of a real heavy, like 4 or 5 hours a day, and now and then now I just don't want to. And Tim Ferriss is a good one. I'll listen to that. But
I figured you're in Texas now. I figured you're a Joe Rogan fan. You're starting to get ripped.
A little bit of Rogan. Yeah, you got to do some. Yeah, you got to do a little bit of Rogan.
Those are all good. I catch them from time to time. I used to catch Joe Rogan just YouTube would recommend a clip.
Yeah.
And then I'd go, okay, I want to hear that whole episode.
By the way, you know what I'm imagining right now, right? The thumbnail. You, Joe.
We got to make the thumbnail face.
You've been going crazy with your thumbnails, man. You've been doing the big head thumbnails.
The big heads have worked, man.
Have
Those
they? I had a feeling because when I look at them, it messes with my brain a little bit, and then I go, "What's happening here?"
You got to stop and pause and be like, "What's with the big head?" And then, the problem is the topics haven't been real good. The thumbnails have been good. The topics not.
Topics don't matter. Content doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the thumbnail.
The problem we have with the eCommerceaholic channel, like it was never intended to be kind of this catch-all for everything. It was supposed to be more of a, podcast, live stream type of channel. Mm-hmm. But we ended up we've got like 2 or 3 different audiences on one channel. And so one of the problems you have with that is YouTube wants to recommend your content. They want to find an audience for you.
Right.
And so if I release a Magento video, well, the people on the channel that like Magento click on that video and they watch it.
Yep.
But if you're into BigCommerce, you're not going to watch that video more than likely.
Yep.
And so what happens is I'll release a BigCommerce video and then YouTube will show it to a certain amount of my audience that has watched videos in the past. But if they've watched Magento videos, they're not going to click on it. And then YouTube's like, okay, this is not good quality.
Yeah.
Because the audience that has watched his stuff before doesn't like this video.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of gets suppressed and it gets 200 or 300 views.
Yeah.
So we're working on over next year. We've already kind of got it started, but we've been, we haven't been putting out content because of this other big project, but we're breaking each of them out into their own channel. So doing a full out BigCommerce channel, Adobe Commerce channel, much more targeted, focused audiences.
That's smart.
To try to get a little broader reach. I mean, they're still
smart,
highly technical topics, but I'm not expecting millions of views on those, but much more targeted.
I finally did with this new podcast. I finally did a separate channel for the clips.
Yeah.
And so there's a clips channel where I'm putting the clips, and then the main channel, but both of those channels still have the same problem of being I've been doing a lot of Magento stuff, but I've been doing a bunch of other random stuff as well. And I just have accepted I'm not going to have a specific topic to it.
Well, you don't have to have a specific topic. What you have to have is a specific audience. Right? So you could talk about all sorts of stuff, but you have to have a specific audience.
Right.
So Tim Ferriss, he's not talking about the same thing every day, right?
Right.
But those types of channels really become a personality channel, right? Like people engage with you and what you're thinking, but you have to be talking about topics that are going to relate to whatever that audience is. Yeah. So, if you're talking about Magento one day and then Bitcoin another, Bitcoin's a big, wide topic. Yeah. Like that's a wide topic. You could find an audience if you're just talking about Bitcoin every day. Yeah. But then when you switch to Magento, what's that Venn diagram of overlap look like of people who are interested in Bitcoin that are now going to, and so you put out a Magento video and YouTube shows it to your Bitcoin audience and they're like, is that like the color purple? Is that when we talk about magenta? Like we don't, so that's actually going to hurt your next video. So when you do the next Bitcoin video, YouTube's like, well, a lot of people didn't like the last one. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I don't know. I'm gonna just go with it and he's like, with your strategy. I'm just putting that down.
It's too much to stress about.
So what's your goal?
Well, the thing is that I really enjoy the conversations themselves. Okay. And so it's kind of just an excuse to do that. Right. And so I'm kind of just trying to stay in that zone. And I've tried this in the past and, I'll sometimes schedule, but you know how it is, right? Where you can kind of get excited about it and then you find yourself in the middle of something and you go, why am I doing this? I don't even care about this topic. And so for me, I think the challenge is to just kind of stay present with it and just stay focused on like having fun, talking to people, and then, I can do the clips on topical things that maybe are a little bit actionable or a little bit, more specific with the clips. But that's kind of my goal is I realize I really just enjoy having conversations about different things. And I think if I keep doing that consistently, it'll build, and I'll be able to hopefully do something with it.
It won't build unless you find an audience.
At the end of the day,
it won't build if it's so random that every video you put out should relate to whatever that audience is. So you can still have fun conversations, but instead of let's sit down and talk about, me producing stupid videos or, BigCommerce versus Adobe Commerce, maybe we're just talking about something that relates to that audience.
Yeah.
So you'd have to be a little more disciplined around what the conversation is, what the topics are, that relate to a particular. They can be random, but they still have to. Because you obviously listen to things that talk about random stuff.
That's the thing.
But you've got to be able to relate to that audience.
Yeah, it's kind of like Rogan as an example. He talks to different people. He talks to scientists and comedians and fighters. And sometimes I go, I'm not interested in this interview with this fighter. But then sometimes I will get a little bit into it.
Right.
And for some reason, it just sticks. And so I think, obviously, I'm never going to be that level, but it's a similar kind of a concept, and I don't know if it'll go anywhere. But
why can't you be at that level?
I mean, I guess it's in theory. I guess it's possible in theory.
But all Joe Rogan does that's interesting is he just has these thought-provoking conversations.
Yeah.
Right. That's all he does. He is targeting an audience of people who like to ponder on particular topics.
Yeah.
Right. And so it may be 1,000 different topics, but he's going to have these, a little deeper, a little more, I don't want to call them meaningful because they're not always necessarily meaningful, but it oftentimes he's talking about something that's at least interesting to think about.
Yeah.
And so he gets your wheels turning. So as you're watching those, you're not so much watching as you are participating in that conversation in your mind as it's going through.
Yeah.
And so that's what he does so well. So do that. But the topics, if you want an audience, the topics are going to have to at least be moderately interesting. It doesn't have to be something they seek out, but it's got to be interesting to them.
Yeah, and what's funny is I've been thinking a lot about the differences between Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss, which are probably the two of the podcasts I've listened to the most. And in many ways, they're similar in the sense that they're massively popular. They're long form. They cover these topics that are sort of sometimes outside of the mainstream. But I was thinking the other day, they're very different in the sense that Rogan's is much more conversational.
Yep.
He doesn't, whereas Ferriss is much more prepared. I mean, he prepares the questions ahead of time, much more methodical. He'll go off on a conversational bunny trail as well, but much heavier in terms of, like you're saying, disciplined, prepared. Whereas the Rogan thing is more just like, he just goes.
It's a curiosity stream almost,
yeah,
right?
And I think he's very good at the skill of conversation and active listening. And like, not everybody knows how to just have a conversation these days. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of a lost art in a way. And so, but I think they're very different. A lot of Ferriss's are audio only as well. Sometimes he'll do video, and I don't quite understand why he doesn't do all of them video, but sometimes audio sometimes you can get more into a conversation just listening via audio versus video can kind of be a distraction, and sometimes.
Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't do that same thing, right? Like you've got the skills, you're funny, you're curious, you're a little weird, which you need to be, right? Like you need to stand out. You've got to be different because if you're the same as everybody else, nobody cares what you have to say because they already know.
I think we're all a little weird.
We are all a little weird. But you're in Austin, Texas, which is a great place to be if you want to, have access to people and things. You've got a very nice Honda studio here. There's no reason you couldn't do that. It is literally just finding interesting conversations and then start working your way into people that other people want to hear, right? Like that's the thing. If you're like, nobody knows who I am. So if you put out a video saying I'm hanging with TJ in my Honda Accord, they're going to be like, so 7 people that know who I am going to click on that video maybe and be like, oh, okay, they're in a car. But you have to have those interesting topics in conversation, build up the audience a little bit.
Yeah.
Once you have a little bit of audience, it explodes when you start having, more interesting people on your conversations. But keep pushing. But I would still be mindful of what the topics are.
No, I know, and I think you're much more disciplined and strategic about all of these things.
Well, I mean, I'm not disciplined about consistency.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't give me credit for discipline at this point.
Yeah, I think if you can kind of get, just in general, if you can be in that sweet spot where you're doing what you love, you know what I mean? I mean, aren't we all kind of trying to find that thing at the end of the day? Like, you're not going to love it every second of the day. It's going to be work, but if you can find that thing that you're kind of uniquely good at and that you like, then the consistency is going to almost kind of take care of itself. I mean, you still got to work at it, but it's almost like you're going to be flying behind the headwind. You know what I mean? You're going to have the wind at your back.
Well, you've got to get it to a point of success, right? Like once you're actually seeing some movement, it's a lot easier to be consistent in something. My problem is not, a lack of dedication or a lack of, desire to be consistent. It's just that if my business does not continue ticking along, then I do not have the funds to create all of this content.
Yeah.
Right. Like everything falls apart. Right.
Yeah.
So everything falls apart if the business is not being successful. So it just comes in spells to where it needs my attention and it's priority number one.
Yeah.
And so the content has to take a back seat. Now we're working real hard to switch that to where my job at the company is the content, and that is the primary focus, is making sure that's going out and being consistent, and also just adding more people so I'm not the only bottleneck to getting content out. But consistency is. And we are back, and unfortunately, we had just gotten to some actually interesting conversation. We solved all the world's problems. Like we had an hour's worth of fluff that you just watched, and then we got to the meat of the conversation and said all the good things, but his laptop had shut down.
I think we only lost about 3.5 minutes.
3.5. There's at least a couple of hours of footage there that you're not going to be able to see where the
laptop was not plugged in, unfortunately, and it did die.
Yeah,
and we did lose, I think, 3-4 minutes.
We went deep into all the problems of the universe and had some really good solutions, but now they're not recorded. So
yeah, it's lost.
Such is life.
It's lost to the ether.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna wrap it up here.
Jalen's tired of talking to me.
I'm not tired or anything. We could talk. We got a lot more we could talk about potentially, but I am a little tired.
See, I called his bluff, didn't I?
No, it's not. I'm just you know how it is when you get distracted, when your situation breaks, and then all you can think about is if you lost a whole bunch of stuff and all the editing you're gonna have to do.
Yep.
So I'm all frazzled.
He's rattled now.
There's
still some bugs to work out in the Honda Accord studio.
There's a couple kinks to work out, but we're getting there. And it's all about putting in the reps. Every time you do it, you get your system. Like next time, I'm going to have this charged up all the way.
So how many of these have you done in the car?
This is my second one.
Just the second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, normally I record by myself in the car, but I'm doing it over Wi-Fi in there.
So you're at the house,
I'm at the house, yeah. And so this is the second with a guest in the car.
Okay.
Yes, you're helping me work out the kinks.
Good.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad I could be a guinea pig.
Yeah. I mean, I knew you'd be down for it.
I'm down for anything.
Yeah.
Except, now I've got to go back in and be a little embarrassed. We were at the hotel, and I came down and I met Kaylin, and Kaylin just looks at me in front of everyone that might be within earshot and says, "You just want to do it in the car?" And I'm like, "Don't put it like that, man."
Yeah, right.
Don't just go tell everybody, "Hey, you pull up to a hotel, somebody comes down, and you're just like, you want to do it in the car?"
Right when it came out of my mouth, I was like, "That didn't sound quite right."
So now I've got to do the walk of shame back up to my room.
Yeah, it's tough. But I'm sure it's not the first time you've done a walk.
Ooh, where are you going?
TJ Gamble, any parting words? Anything you want to share? You want to tell everybody about your secret project, Last Chance?
Can't tell them. Can't tell them. You just have to watch. January. It should be on January.
Good times.
You'll know it when you see it.
I love it. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time, I guess.